Uh, this presentation probably is going to take about 30 minutes or so. We'll have plenty of time for answering questions. And if you have questions along the way, either use the chat to put them out there, and Heather will keep track of those that are coming in and let me know. Or if you want to take yourself off mute and ask the question, we're totally fine with that as well. All right, Heather, you can go ahead and start the recording.
You're good.
So welcome to our information session for the Summit County Small Business Grant Relief Program. We are just beginning round 3, where we are asking for businesses that need help and support due to COVID-19 to apply for grant support up to $7,500 for their business. Our purpose of our session today is to give you a little information about the program, the origins of the program, a little bit about who's eligible, some of the things that you can use the money for, and some of the details around the application process. We do have a separate recording that's available on our site that will walk you step by step through the application. So if you're at the point where you're ready to sort of jump in and do the application, you can also utilize that recording. And that'll take about 30-35 minutes to walk you through every single field of what you've got to put in. But at the end of that, if you work along with us, you should be in a position to submit your application. So this information session, though, will give you broad information around the grant program. Before I get started with details on the grant program itself, I do want to point you towards our COVID-19 business resource site. This is a site that was pulled together by about 20 of our ecosystem partners in Greater Akron. When COVID came upon us all and we realized it was going to create significant business disruption, a number of our organizations thought that the best way to keep folks up to date, share information, and not be too redundant is to create a joint site. So many of our partners share this site with us. We update it as new information becomes available. So I wanted to make sure that you knew it was available. There's great information about assistance programs, resources, links to information about COVID requirements and those kinds of things there. And again, it's a resource available to anyone in the Greater Akron region. And that's at gaccovid19.org. This site is also important because that's the site that you'll go to apply for the grant. So there's a sub-menu here called Grant Program, and you will see the information about the grant program overview and the guidelines for the grant, as well as a button to push to get to the application to apply for the grant. And also, there's also a selection for facts, frequently asked questions, which we've kind of listed some of them here. You can dive in and get some answers to some of the questions that we're hearing most from applicants in the process. So this will be your place to come to apply for the grant and get your basic information. As I said, the grant can be up to $7,500 for your business, for your small business in Summit County. Companies with no employees all the way up to 30 employees are eligible for the grant. And based on the size of your business, there's different amount of dollars that you're eligible for, which we'll cover in a few minutes. There will be information sessions in addition to this one. We have another one on Monday, October the 5th. All the sessions are the same. We just provide another live opportunity during these sessions to talk to some of our staff and our team. But if you see the recording or if you attended a session already, there's no need to come to an additional session. It's really the same information that we're sharing, just at multiple times on multiple dates. So where did this grant program come from and why? Early on in the process of COVID impacting our businesses, Summit County Executive Eileen Shapiro, Chief of Staff Brian Nelson, County Council understood that COVID was going to have a significant impact on the small businesses in our community. So we initially started this program and working with them to utilize about $750,000 of general county funds, along with an additional $750,000 of contributions from some local philanthropies, from some other organizations, and from some of the municipalities in the region, to really end up with a program of about $1.5 million, where every county dollar is matched by another dollar of additional contributions. And that program was very quickly oversubscribed. We had huge demand from businesses seeking help and support. And about that time, we also received an allocation to the county from the CARES Act. And again, based on the demand in the program, the county executive thought that one of the best uses of those funds could be to support the small businesses and support employment in Summit County. So they allocated an additional amount of money to the program, an additional $5 million, and then an additional $1.3 million to the program based on the demand we had in the second round. And now that we're towards the tail end of the dollars that are available from the CARES Act for Summit County, there's really a concern about the length of time that this is going on and the additional need for our businesses to continue to have support. So last week, Council allocated another $5 million to the program, not only for new applicants to the program who haven't been supported before, but also to allow folks who had gotten grants through the program previously to come in for a second tranche of funding if that's something that they feel that they need. And so while those who have not received funding yet will have some preference and priority in the process, companies that have been significantly impacted by COVID and apply for additional funds can also receive an additional grant. And so it's just a way of us continuing to find ways to support the businesses. And again, we appreciate Summit County's commitment to our small businesses in the community. The funds that come from this grant program can be used for any deductible business expense. And we'll get into the details of that in a little bit as well. So what businesses are eligible? Pretty much any business in the state of Ohio is eligible for these funds as long as you are a for-profit business and it's not a business that's focused on passive income activity. So the business has to have been in operation since December 15th, 2018. And we will need either a 2018 or 2019 federal business tax return or 1040 with Schedule C to verify the existence and the existence of the business. The program is really based on employee size in terms of how much funding that you can get. And so a one-person business where the owner is the sole employee can get up to a $2,500 grant. If you have 2 to 11 employees, up to a $5,000 grant, and 11 or more employees, up to a $7,500 grant with a maximum of 30 total employees. The employee count is something that we'll go through in a little bit here, but it's important to know that the employee count for your application can include or exclude the owner to the benefit of the applicant. And what we mean by that is if including the owner will take you up over the maximum threshold for the program, you can exclude yourself. If it allows you to move to a 2 or an 11 employee level to get a little bit more money through the program, you can include yourself as the owner in the count. And again, we can give you some more details on that as we go further in the presentation. At least 50% of the employees of the business must be permanent Summit County residents. This program is being funded by dollars for the county, and the county is really focused on ensuring it benefits folks who are employing residents of Summit County. And you must also be current on your obligations for property tax and income tax, as well as any joint economic development district tax obligations that you have. What will disqualify a business from consideration? Any business that has already been closed or is not intending to continue its business operations following COVID-19 is not eligible for the grant. If you're in receivership or bankruptcy or organized as a nonprofit corporation, I'm not trying to be humorous here, but I guess I want to underline the fact that if you are organized as a nonprofit, you are not eligible. If you are a for-profit business experiencing no profits right now or losses right now, you are eligible. So we're just, if you're organized with a board and you're a 501c3 or C6 or other entity, there are other programs available out there for you. This program is not available to those organizations organized as nonprofit corporations. And if you are an entertainment device arcade, a sexually oriented business, a business that primarily sells tobacco products, you are also not eligible for the program. On that last note, if you are a convenience store, a grocery store, or an operation that sells tobacco as part of your overall lineup, you're okay. But if the primary thing that you sell from your business, if you're a smoke shop, you're a vape shop, something like that, you are not eligible for the grant. And then finally, if your income, if your revenue you're generating is solely passive activity, or you're a sole proprietor without employees that is driving income from that business that's less than 25% of the adjusted gross income of the person filing the schedule, you are not eligible. The reason for that is we are trying to support businesses that are employing people or businesses that are driving the primary income for those that are filing. We understand that rental properties have been impacted by this and other kinds of things, but we're really focusing on businesses that are operating to drive employment and businesses that are operating to drive primary means of income for individuals in the county. In addition, if you're a financial institution to make loans or choose credits, you're not eligible. And if you have received grant funds previously through this program, as I said before, you are eligible up to certain limits. So as long as you have not received more than $15,000 in grant funds from other programs in the county, other grant programs, or the total from this grant plus what you received before does not exceed $15,000, you can get dollars from this grant program up to that threshold of $15,000. This does not include anything from the Payroll Protection Program or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program or other loan programs that are out there in relief. Those programs won't count towards that cap, and having resources from those programs do not make you ineligible for this grant program. But again, these are grant funds we're giving out. We want to make sure these grant funds can get to as many folks as possible. And so we want to sort of cap the total amount any one company can sort of take from the program in grants. So what can I use the grant for? As we said, any eligible business expenses that you could count as a deductible business expense inside of a business are eligible to use those expenses, to pay for those expenses with grant funds. And so all those typical kinds of expenses that are listed here qualify. We will ask you to tell us what you'll be using the funds for in general. And then once you receive the funds, you'll be asked for some documentation around how those funds were used. You do not have to, wait for the funds. So let me restate that. The funds do not have to come in and then be spent on something. If you have already incurred expense during the period of time of the pandemic, being defined for this grant from March 15th of 2020 through the end of this year, any expense that you've incurred during that time can be claimed against the grant dollars you received. Even if you've already expended it, the grant dollars can be seen to be a reimbursement of the funding. If you received a grant from us before, you can't use the same expenses again and claim the same expenses twice in the program, which sounds sort of like common sense, but there are folks who have double dipped on some of these dollars. So we want to be very clear about the fact that it's an expense that hasn't already been claimed to be supported by other resources provided by this program or other programs. In addition, if you're a sole proprietor, again, you're organized as a sole proprietor, whether or not you have employees, you file a Form 1040 with a Schedule C. Basically, you can reimburse yourself for lost business income of up to 33% of the net profit reported on that schedule. So, again, if you're a sole proprietor, you can use these funds either to cover business expenses, or if you don't have business expenses to cover and you want to use it to cover lost income that you'd be reporting from the business, you can take up to 33% of that lost income with the grant. So, for example, a $5,000 grant could allow you to replace, 33% of $15,000 or more of business owner income. So what do I need to apply? Not a whole lot. Most of the information you're going to be able to answer on the application from your general knowledge of your business and the structure of your business and the operations of your business. There are some data points that we'll ask you for in the application. This list of requirements is also presented to you as you sort of go into the application to begin with. We'd ask you to collect your information and bring it together so you have it at your fingertips as you apply. It won't take you long to apply, maybe 25 to 35 minutes or so in total. But having this information at your fingertips will make it that much easier. Once you start the application, there's not really a function or an ability to save it midway and then leave and come back. If you close your browser, you'll lose your place and you'll have to sort of start over again. So that's why we suggest that you have the information available so you can move through the application pretty quickly with the information available to you. And so some basic things, no trick questions here, just we're looking for your annual operating revenue for 2019, as well as your expenses for 2019. And then we're looking for your payroll expense as a total of that operating expense for all of 2019. We're looking for your year-to-date operating revenue for 2020 and your year-to-date operating expense for 2020, and your estimated lost revenue due to COVID through September 30th, as well as any increased business expenses you had due to COVID through September 30th. We're also asking for your number of employees in the business as of March 15th and as of September 15th, so we can understand the impact on employment that has existed in your business due to COVID and the number of your employees that live in Summit County. And those are the hard data points we're really looking for, in addition to a number of other questions that we'll ask you about your business. The year-to-date operating revenue and year-to-date operating expense for 2020, we're looking for that sort of through September, or as close as the best estimate you have to that. What we're really trying to understand is how has COVID impacted your overall operating revenue and operating expenses versus 2019. So that's part of the way we think about the grant eligibility and the grant scoring. Some other information that you'll need to apply: your EIN, employer identification number, or the Social Security number of the primary owner if you don't have an EIN. We'll be looking for your contact information of any owners in addition to the person applying with more than a 20% share of the business. Any other grant relief or support that you've received, and your NAICS code. We give you the ability to go look up your NAICS code as part of the application process, but that really helps us again understand what industry you're working in, and the industry that you're in, and the impact that COVID has had on that industry is again part of the scoring criteria for the grant. You'll also need to upload some documentation. If you applied in round one, we collected this documentation afterwards. But in this round, because we're getting so close to the deadline for expending these dollars by the end of the year, we want to collect this information as part of the application process. So you have to upload a copy of your W-9 so that we will know where to pay once we have provided grant payment to you. Also, a copy of the first page of your 2018 or 19 business tax return, and a copy of the first page of the related Schedule C if you file a 1040 as a sole proprietor. So those documents, again, a picture of those documents, a scan of those documents, electronic version of those documents, whatever you have that you can upload to us for that, so that we can verify the business in your application. So a couple caveats. Take your time, make sure you complete all the required questions. We are relying on what you tell us in the grant application to score your application. So please also be truthful in your responses. We ask for a little bit of information as part of some documents as part of this process. We have the ability to come back and ask for additional verifying information, and we have had to do that in some cases. We also will be auditing the program, so some number of companies will be audited in terms of their documents and the information they provided. So please give us truthful information in the application. We are trying to help, and we ask that you respect that and provide information that's truthful in the process. If you are found to not be truthful in your application, we have the right to come back and rescind the dollars and ask for the money back. So, you know, just do your best to answer the application with the right information. If you make a mistake on your submission, make sure you email us and let us know that. When you go through the application, there's going to be a series of yes, no boxes. And again, we do have a recording of that process that Brian is taking you through step by step on. If you don't understand something, please ask. Please send us an email to the COVID grant@greaterakronchamber.org email. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions to make sure that your application is submitted correctly. Be careful on the yes, no boxes. There are a number of folks who have disqualified themselves by answering questions. So for example, we ask you if you're current on your income tax obligations. If you say no, you have disqualified yourself for the grant, since that's a requirement. We are going to verify that information with local tax authorities, but we are trying to filter out folks at the beginning if they just know that they're not current is a reason for disqualification. But other questions like about your for-profit, nonprofit status, those kinds of things, just help us by carefully answering those questions, yes, no. And then review your application before submitting. You can go back and forth across the screens in the application, make sure the data is correct. Once you push the button to finish your application, you'll be presented back with all the answers that you've put in. Take one last chance to review that before you make your final submission. Once you've submitted, you will get a confirmation email from us with a copy of the application. Please save that so you have that for the future. But again, if you go through that and have found that you've made a mistake, email us, let us know where the mistake is, and we will do our best to help you fix it and get back to you as soon as we can. We will have a lot of volume of people reaching out to us. The time of completion, so how fast you get this in, it only plays into the scoring and the awarding of dollars to the extent that we get down to the last few $1,000s in the grant program, and there's a couple of people who submitted at the same time. The person who have submitted first will get preference there, but we don't think that's a reason for you to rush through this. Make sure that you take your time to go through a right application completed timely and in on time is better than an application that is incomplete, inaccurate, or disqualifies you submitted early. So just make sure that you take the time to go through and get it right. So how are we scoring the application? It's all objective. There's not a lot of evaluation of who you are or who you know or what the name of your business is or those kinds of things. It's really all comes down to the numbers in terms of your application. Here's some of the criteria that we're scoring based on as we look at each applicant's responses to our grant application. In round one and round two, we had more than almost 2,800 submissions. We had about 1,900 grants that we awarded for about $7.5 million, a little bit more in grants. All kinds of businesses got money, and businesses of all different sizes and types got money. So again, we're trying to help as many businesses as we can. Some of these statistics will give you a sense of the distribution of the funds in our first couple of rounds. In round two, all the eligible businesses were eventually funded because we had the resources to do so. Unfortunately, I don't believe we're going to have enough resources to fund every eligible business this time around. So again, it will be based on scoring and need as we look at the applications that come in. So after I apply, as we had indicated, you'll get a confirmation email. It's going to go to the email address you give us in your application. Please be careful about giving us good contact info. We're in the process of rescinding a number of grants from the prior round right now because we just haven't been able to contact or get a response from the applicants. So please make sure you give us a good email address to connect with you on. Also a good phone number in the event your email doesn't work for us. We'll try to reach out and call you, and then we will try to mail you. So if you can at least give us some information, good contact information, that will help us get in touch with you. You'll be scored based on your eligibility and on the award criteria. If you are selected for a grant award, we're going to ask for a couple additional things from you. One will be a grant agreement that we will send to you that we'll ask you to sign off on. And the second will be any additional documentation we may find that we need based on what you've given to us. In most cases, it's really just the grant agreement that we need, but we do have the ability to ask for some additional information that at times might need to do that to verify some things. Once everything is verified, your documents are received, we'll issue you a check for the grant. And within 90 days of your grant award, you need to provide back to us the verification of how that money was used and the expenses for which it was used, receipts, et cetera. We'll prompt you for that information. We'll provide you a form for that, but we definitely need to get some documentation back from you so that we can fulfill our requirements of documentation to the county and to the federal government. Application deadline, 9 a.m. Wednesday, October 7th. That means your application is in and submitted by that time. If you have begun your application and you do not finish it till after 9 a.m., your application will be ineligible. The system will not lock you out if you're midway through the application, but we'll be looking at the submission date and time of the application. And unfortunately, we can't accept anything that comes in past 9 a.m. on Wednesday, October 7th. You've got plenty of time between now and then to fill your application in. Please take that time to get it done on time so that we don't have to rule you ineligible for your time of submission. And with that, I think I will open it up to any questions that folks have or questions that maybe have come in, Heather, in the interim to answer for folks.
Sure. So we have had some questions come in from applicants that are applying throughout round 3. I just want to make sure that if anyone that is watching live with us right now has questions, feel free to unmute and ask them or put them into the chat. So our first question is, can you help contract workers understand who is eligible? If someone has a 1099, are they eligible whether they have a 1040 or not? And if they have a 1040, are they eligible whether they have a Schedule C or not?
So basically the 1040 Schedule C is how a business owner, a sole proprietor, will report their income on a pass-through entity. So if you have a 1040, you'll report your income there. And so we'll have to see business income on that Schedule C, and you'll have to have a Schedule C if you file with a 1040 to be eligible. And if you have that 1040 Schedule C, we'll be able to give you reimburse business expenses for your sole proprietorship, or also income of up to 33% of what's on that line 31 of your Schedule C. If you do not have a schedule, if you file 1040 and do not have a Schedule C, then you haven't filed business income, and so we won't be able to support you with a grant. So that's that 1040 Schedule C is your verification, that you're operating a business for income purposes that we can support. If you have multiple 1099s and you're a contractor, let's say you do multiple different jobs, you're a consultant and you do 5 or 6 different client jobs during the year, you'll have the 1099s and you'll have the W-9s that you'll get for all of those different jobs, and those together will compose, the business income that you report. So hopefully that answers the question around contractors and how that works. If you do not bring in enough dollars on an annual basis to file it for tax purposes on a Schedule C, then you're not going to be the kind of business that we will be able to support with the grant.
Okay, similar to that question, another one that has been posed based on the Schedule C is, can you provide a little bit more information or an example of how it's determined based on the revenue or the income? So on the Schedule C, on line 31, is that the income or the revenue for the business?
No, that's the line 31 of your Schedule C is going to be your net income or loss from your business operations that you're reporting.
Okay, thank you. Dan, did you have a question for the group?
Yeah, two. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I saw a mention, I think we clicked off the screen pretty quick and I didn't get a chance to read it, of businesses that receive the PPP program.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So this is speaking to eligibility.
Yeah.
So yeah, the PPP program, in our first round of the grant program, a big reason we did the grant program was to encourage people to apply for PPP and EIDL. And so it was a requirement in that first round that you had applied for those programs. And then we learned that, not everybody got access to those programs, et cetera, after that. But if you've received the Payroll Protection Program loan, a grant, it's really a loan that is forgivable, or a economic injury disaster loan, neither of those will make you ineligible for this grant program.
Okay.
The grant can ride right along with it. So we don't want to get in the way of that. If you got a PPP or an EIDL, that's great. You should also be able to receive a grant as well in addition to that.
Okay, and then the second question is, last year, we opened up last year, I believe July of 19, and had a pretty decent start. And then of course, COVID hit in March. Last year, as getting just started, we did not take the principals of the company, who were also the employees of the company. Myself and another did not take wages as such. We received, I think there was a small amount of income, but we did, in other words, we didn't have a paycheck.
Right. So in that situation, that's not uncommon for owners. In that situation, I presume that you will have business expenses that you could utilize to put the grant against.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it on my questions. It looks pretty straightforward, and the program seems to lead you through it. So.
Yeah, we've done everything we can to make it. It's also possible, and I didn't mention this, but you can do your application from a computer, or you could also do it from a smartphone. So we haven't had very many technical difficulties with it. So we hope folks find that to be easy to use. And again, if you have questions or concerns as you go through it, please always reach out to us at covidgrant@greaterakronchamber.org. They have a team of people who are constantly monitoring that, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Heather, are there other questions that we've got? I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Yes. So one of the questions was, I did not file taxes last year or this year. Can I apply? And if so, what do I submit?
So if you did not file taxes for your business, there are other issues that we should be talking about. But you need to have a tax return for your business, either a business tax return or 1040 Schedule C in order to qualify for the grant.
Okay. This time you're asking for tax information in a W-9 with the application. Must I submit this with the application, or can I go back and add that to my application later?
No, we really need to submit it up front. We're going to be on a very tight timeline on this. And so a completed application will include a W-9 and a copy of your tax information as requested. If you do not submit those items, your application will not be able to be submitted, and it will not be complete.
If I am the owner, do I count myself in the employee count to get a higher grant dollar amount? And must I include myself in the count for the Summit County employees number?
So so the way you think about counting yourself as an owner, you need to be consistent. So if you do it for purposes of the total number of employees, you'll also need to do it for purposes of the total number of employees in Summit County. The way you would think about that is any of your employees that are typical W-2 employees count towards your count. In addition, count any contractors who spend more than 20 hours a week regularly with you. So for example, if you're in a personal services business and you have cosmetologists that contract for a chair with your business from on average more than 20 hours a week, those can also count to your count because we're looking for total economic activity from the business. And then as the owner, you can also count yourself if it makes sense to do so. So when would it make sense? If it would take you from having 10 employees to 11 employees, taking you from a $5,000 to a $7,500 grant. Or in the case that you have 30 employees and adding yourself as the owner takes you to 31 and makes you ineligible, keep yourself off the count so that you can maintain your eligibility. But in most cases, you're going to want to count yourself as the owner as part of the business. The only other reason that you might not do that is if, for example, you have 10 employees and 5 of those employees are Summit County residents and 5 are not, and you as the owner are not a Summit County resident. By adding yourself into the count, you would meet less than 50% of the Summit County resident threshold number. So that would also be a reason to think about that. So if you have any questions about these counts or the way to think about it, please send us an email and we can give you some guidance on that. But again, just be cognizant of how including yourself as the owner in the count affects your eligibility.
Okay. What if one of the many products that I sell is a tobacco product? Am I eligible?
You are eligible as long as it's not the majority of the business that you do in your business. So if, as I said earlier, if you're a smoke shop or a vape shop and that's the lion's share of your business, you're not eligible. But if you're a small grocer or a retail establishment that has cigarettes as part of your lineup, that's okay.
If I own a business with 2 locations, can I apply for a grant for both? And how do I do that?
So it depends. So if you're one business with 2 locations, you would apply for one grant. If you have 2 separate businesses that you own that have separate employer identification numbers and operate as separate businesses, you could apply for each of those businesses.
That was the last of the questions that we had. We did have one person join late. So for Martin, I just want to make sure that you know that this information session will be up on our website, and we shared 2 links with everyone in the chat section.
Great. And with that, I think we will end the recording of our session, but Martin, we'll stay on for you if you had additional questions that you wanted to address before we sign off here. But one last call for anybody else on the line who's got a question. And if not, thank you for joining us again. Any help or support that you need through the process of applying for the grant, please make sure that you email us at, I was trying to find the email address here. There it is, covidgrant@greaterakronchamber.org, and we will be happy to help you. Good luck with your application process. And for any other needs for your business or things that we can help with beyond just the grant program, remember, we're here to help you. And again, send us an email and we'll do the best we can to help you, your business, and your employees. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.